everybody, welcome to the Act Out. From open mic to the big stage, comedians tell us how stories were made. I'm your host, Duck. Today, we have an awesome guest. I'm super excited to have this guy on. Hilarious comedian, kills it on stage, great stage presence, always awesome. Love your writing, hands down, one of my favorites in DFW. First time I saw you on stage, I actually was at an open mic, and my thought was, this guy is too good for open mic.
Nah, really?
Yeah, it was awesome, dude. It was awesome.
Was that here at the Improv?
It was here, but of course it was an open mic, so no one was getting laughs.
Yeah.
But like you got a couple chuckles, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome."
Yeah.
But I was like, "This set is way too good for this stage right now because at an open mic, it's way too good for the open mic stage, I should say." But like when you sent me a video earlier where you're crushing it, like I was like, "Fuck yeah," because I've never seen you live on stage before. So
I've gotten very good at putting fake laughs in those clips.
Yeah, there you go. That's what you got to do. Just layer them in.
That's the secret in comedy. Perfect the fake laughs.
Absolutely. Also has an amazing podcast called Crux, which is so much fun to say. We got Crux Crawford. How you doing, sir?
What's up, man? Very happy to be here. I love this podcast, man. I've listened to at least 5, 6, 7 of these episodes.
Thank
Angela
you.
Walker, Shiva, a little bit of a dud. No, Shiva's one of my close friends. I love all these fucking podcasts, man. I think it's great what you're doing. I love the network, this Improv Texas Comedy Network. You're putting a lot of work in, man. It's not going on. It's great. I love it, dude.
Yeah.
I love these episodes. I love the whole fucking thing.
So yeah, let's talk about how long you've been in the game. How long has it been?
Dude, I'll tell you, man. So I am a total new jack. This month, exactly in June of 2023, is going to be 2 years.
2 years?
This is 2 years.
I thought you'd been doing it for like 5 or 6 or 7 at least.
I really appreciate that, man. But I'm being perfectly honest, dude. This month in June of 2023 is 2 years. My first time I went up, and I'll clarify on that in a second, not to spend a million years on it, but bottom line is the first time I went up this time doing stand-up comedy, doing like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 plus mics a week, like working, bombing, doing well, fixing, writing, adapting, blah, 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 trying to get shows. My first set, first time I went up was at the Arlington Improv when they were doing Tuesdays, Test Your Mic, right before it went on a big hiatus. So just by pure coincidence, I got selected. I submitted online, and and Joel put me up. Junebug put me up, and that was like the last one for like months and months and months and months. Now they've been doing it again for about a year, but like they didn't do it for like 8 or 9 months. And I just by pure luck just got in on that last Test Your Mic.
Oh wow!
Before they went dark, right? So that was my first time getting up, and then I just hit all the other hyenas, all the other Dallas Fort Worth mics, jumped in with both feet and shit. I tried stand-up comedy, when I was super, super young in 2012. I just did like a couple open mics, I did the usual thing because I'm from Los Angeles. I was in LA, and I did like, the Ha Ha Cafe and Comedy Store. I had like the third open mic I ever did. I tried to go in the Comedy Store. I didn't understand there's a million people trying to get on the list, didn't get up. I did the same thing at the Laugh Factory. Like, I just didn't understand there's people waiting out there since 8 o'clock in the morning. I was doing the dumb new guy shit.
Yeah.
Like the ignorant thing where it's like, well, I'm going to go to the best clubs to be horrible at comedy and have no set at all. It's like, yeah, that's a great idea. So then I went to some shittier open mics where I belonged, right? And I did those. And I bombed at a couple of them, right? So I had all this material prepared, and of course I thought like, oh, this is great, dude. I'm doing original shit that no one's ever talked about before, dude. I'm going to talk about Super Mario Brothers. I'm going to talk about being tall. It's like, dude, all these just horrible like things. It's like, bro, everybody's trying to talk about that. It's like, I didn't understand yet. You're supposed to talk about yourself. But whatever, bottom line is I did a couple open mics. Then I did Ha Ha Cafe open mic, and I just, for some reason, I don't even remember the dumb stuff I said, but I had a good set, right? So this guy came up to me afterwards that I found out is still working today. He actually opens for Nick Schwartzen now, but like back 10 years ago, this dude was like, hey man, that was pretty funny. Do you want to do my showcase show at a bar, right? So he booked me on a show after my third open mic set or whatever, right?
Wow.
So then I was thinking, obviously, I was dumb. Like I was thinking to myself, young, super young dumb, like being like, this is how it's done, bro. This is easy.
I'm heading to the stars.
I'm going to have a special like in a few months, dude,
Yeah.
If I go do that. It was a bar show in Hollywood is what it was. I went and did that bar show and just completely bombed and was just like, dude, forget this. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. And I walked away and I had a bunch of priorities. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right time to make the commitment that you need to make when you're doing stand-up comedy. You know what I mean? That everybody knows you need to, that actually does it. So that doesn't count. I don't count that. That was like a month of doing 5 open mics in a bar show that I bombed at. Yeah. That doesn't count.
So did the bar show bombing, did that really set you back though?
It depressed me. Like I went outside and like I was like talking to, like just listening to a bunch of comics talk, and I just was kind of evaluating the amount of time I needed to dedicate at that point in time, and I was just like, dude, I don't think that I'm ready to really just fully dive into this the way that I know that I need to. Because I was looking around and I was seeing how all these working comics were just like in LA, were just completely immersed in it. And I was thinking to myself, like, nah, dude, this isn't the right time. I can't, you know what I mean? So it just wasn't the right time because I knew what needed to be done. I've always had a huge respect. I've always been a big stand-up comedy nerd. So I knew what was needed, right? I knew that it wasn't for me at that time. So this time, 2021, I was like, dude, I know what it takes, and I'm ready to do that.
And then COVID.
Yeah. Well, luckily it was in the middle of that, and unfortunately in Texas, unlike California, it's just in comparison, was just wide open.
Yeah.
Everything going on. It's leveled out, and certain things have normalized a lot since I started 2 years ago, as far as COVID and things being normal and things being open. But still, there was a lot of options. There were a lot of mics. And I knew it's like, dude, I need to dive in. I need to go and just be awful, like a bunch of times in a row, and not do well, and just eat it over and over until I could start developing, like, pay attention to what works, pay attention to what doesn't work, fix it, change it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I've just been doing that. I did tons of open mics a week, like 12 plus open mics a week, nonstop for months and months. Started to get a little notice, started to get a couple guest spots here and there. And then I did well in those guest spots. Then I started to get legit spots on shows, like bar shows, et cetera, in a town, out of town. A couple comics have helped me out. Casey Coleman, Paul Smith, Mikey B. A bunch of people have helped me out, just because they saw that I was working. They saw that I was working on getting better, so they gave me little opportunities, and then it built up from there. And, and then I started getting club spots, and, just kind of, it's just been snowballing.
And recently it goes a full circle. You worked with Pauly Shore.
Dude,
so that's
full
funny.
Circle.
Yeah, that's
full
circle. The Comedy Store. Yeah. Well, you come from the world of being a musician too, right?
Yep.
So what do you play? What is your instrument?
So I played drums for 12 years, right? So like when I was a little kid, like 10, 11, like I started playing drums, and then I was fully invested in trying to be like a drummer, like specifically like a metal drummer for like all of like middle school and high school. Dude, I wanted to be like Lars from Metallica. I wanted to be like Abe Cunningham from the Deftones. I wanted to be like Vinnie Paul from Pantera. I got a Black Pearl Export series eventually. It wasn't the first drum kit I got, but it was like the second or third like serious drum kit I got once my parents were like, oh shit, this guy's like dedicated, this guy's like really playing drums. So I got like a double kick Pearl Export series black, because that's the same drum kit that Vinnie Paul played. So I wanted to play that. And then I had a snare drum that was a Thomas Starr Classic snare, which was the same snare that both Lars from Metallica used at the time, and then also Abe Cunningham from the Deftones used at the time. So it's like I got that snare with this drum kit. So I was like a drummer. I was playing 6-8 hours a day, practicing Slayer, Slipknot, Pantera, all these bands, like just playing along with the songs. And then I joined bands. Like when I was 17, 18, I started joining a bunch of metal and hardcore bands and playing drums, doing the road, touring around, like playing like with bands, like because I was playing with guys that are older than me. Then I did it in a couple bands for years, and just doing small tours, bands that no one cared about, like projects that really ended up going nowhere. You record EPs and CDs and stuff. You put them out, and like you get a couple people that are interested, but otherwise it's nothing. You're not making it. Then I became the vocalist in a couple metalcore bands.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that was a little bit more successful. I was in this band called End of Expectations. We opened for like a lot of metalcore bands, like As I Lay Dying, Devil Wears Prada. We opened for a lot of people on the road, stuff like that. That was a lot more momentum. Like we'd like sign little autographs, have a small little group of fans.
Was this before you tried the comedy in 2012?
Yeah, this was all before.
So you've been on stage as the front and center of the stage. You've been up there, so you probably thought that confidence would transfer over to comedy in some way.
And the stage presence, I think, definitely has, because a lot of people, like Shiva, like when I was brand new, like he saw me at Hyena's open mic, and then I got off stage, and he's like, well, you got stage presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah,
not much else, but you got stage.
No, you definitely have that. You have that kinetic energy when you're on stage, where you kind of like to move around the stage and kind of like that, get ready for it.
Yeah, so, ADD. Do you know Rob Ross?
Mm-mm.
You don't know who Rob Ross is?
No.
Oh, okay. He's been doing comedy for a long time. He mainly on the Fort Worth side of things, I guess. But he was saying that, like, I did this open mic at this. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was Bodega open mic in Fort Worth. He came up. I was doing it. I was just on stage saying horrible whatever stuff. But at the end of the day, at the end of my set, he came up and went, "Okay, so you've definitely done some kind of public speaking or some kind of entertainment before, because you're very comfortable talking to a group of people. Comedy is awful, but you're good at talking to a group." No, he didn't say that. But
Who is it? Ross who?
Rob Ross.
Rob Ross. No,
Yeah.
I've never met
You don't know
Ross.
Rob Ross? Cool dude. Veteran comedian in the DFW comedy scene. I think he took a break for a while. But people that have been in the game for a long time, like Junebug, people know him. People know who he is.
Well, like you said, there's also a divide. There's a Fort Worth side and there's a Dallas side when it comes to comedy. So when I go over to Fort Worth and do open mics, it's a completely different set of comedians. I'm always like shocked by who I meet over there. But it's kind of cool that it's divided that way. You were playing music. When did you decide to kind of give that up, or are you still doing that?
No, I'm still doing it, man. Still doing it. I took a break from it for a few years because I was like, dude, I'm just kind of done with this stuff. Like, I want to make some money. I never grew up with money. You know what I mean? So I started selling cars. I started doing really well with that, making a lot of money, dude. I did that for a few years. Met my girlfriend, who's now my wife. Like, I really, fell in love with her. So I was really interested in making that relationship work. Like, I really wanted to, like, be with her, like, not just, like, date or mess around. I really wanted to, like, have a relationship. So I really wanted to invest time in that. I really wanted to make some money. So I took a few years break. Then a buddy of mine, who's been one of my best friends that was the lead guitar player in one of those metalcore bands that we used to tour and play with. We got back in touch after a few years, and he was working for Stevie Aoki's record label at the time for Dimmock. And he just recently left. He's been working there for years. But we got together and we're like, dude, let's get together. Let's start sharing some files back and forth. Let's go to each other's apartments and start making some music. So we started this project called We Are the Flesh a couple years ago, and we just started putting out we did like Walking Dead songs, like metal songs based on Negan from Walking Dead. And that's when the show was really popular. This was a few years ago, and people really loved it. It blew up all over Facebook, and we got a bunch of hits and a bunch of plays. And people were like, dude, do more songs. Then we did a song about the Purge. That got really popular. So all those songs have like millions of plays now on Spotify and everywhere else. So then we started really taking it seriously and just putting out songs consistently all the time. The trap metal thing was starting to get really popular like a few years ago. So we kind of fell into that. Luckily, started making songs with that sound when that was kind of blowing up. So we got some tracks that really blew up off of that. So long story short, we have fans with that project. We got like 50, 60,000 monthly listeners on Spotify all the time. Yeah. Catalog has like 10 million plays or some shit. So it's a decent sized band. You know what I mean? We used to play live before the pandemic. Now we don't. We still get offers, but it's got to be worth it. It's got to make sense because now we don't both live in Los Angeles anymore, obviously. I live in Dallas, Fort Worth, and then he lives in Arizona. So it's got to make sense for both of us to travel and stuff. But we still put out releases regularly. We're still, get royalties off of it and all that stuff. So
do you play the actual drums or you program them?
All the drums now are programmed. Luckily, dude, where it is with technology, like for anybody that knows like how music production works now in 2023 and for the past few years, it's so amazing, dude. You can have like the only thing you really need, and I mean, technically you could argue that you don't even need this anymore, but you do need some kind of songwriting and artistry. The only thing you really need is vocals. Like you need ideas. You just need somebody to come up with the compositions. The drums, the bass, the guitar, you can program all that in and make it sound so good now through the different filters and different plugins that you can literally just sound like you have a full 5-piece band behind you when it's all the computer.
That's what my friend, we played in a band years ago, and he says to me, he goes, hey, how about you play the drums again? I'm like, okay, cool. He goes, well, you got to get this program so you can I'm like, wait, what? Am I playing the drums? No, no, you're programming them. That's what you're going to do. But you're right. It all sounds amazing now. So
you could not tell the difference. You can not tell the difference by just listening to a recording and going, is this a real band playing this, or was this completely programmed and just somebody who isn't? You do have to be a musician that understands how the things are supposed to sound so you can write them. Mm-hmm. Like that's what I do with drums a lot when we're working together. Like I played drums for 12 years of my life, so I know drums very well. Like I can still get behind a kit and play. So like I know like what's supposed to happen here, what instrument, what part you're supposed to hit with this. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And so, do you have any plans to play out at any point?
Not right maybe now. But we're continuing to release music now. The way the music industry has kind of changed is like you do performances like a la carte, and like huge bands that were big before the internet still tour. Obviously, like Metallica still tours every year. Like Motley Crue has toured and stuff. And but like rappers, it doesn't matter what genre, like everybody kind of bases a tour around social media and around Spotify now. So you look at your numbers, you look at where you're big, you look at where you have the most plays, you look at where you have the most listeners. All the back end data gives you access to that, and then you plan your live performances around that.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so you can do that, but honestly, the cool thing, man, is like because in the early mid 2000s, the industry lost a bunch of money because people stopped buying CDs and they started downloading music. And at that time, it was you could download music for free, right? That was just how you do it. You download it off Napster, you download it off LimeWire, you download it off Kazaa or whatever, And that was kind of how it was. You burned it on CDs or you put it on your iPod, and for years, that's how people did it, right? Because that's how young people listened to music from like 2000 to 2010, 10 or 12 or something. Then when when the bandwidth was there, when technology started to be available for everybody on smartphones to have an Apple Music, to have a Spotify where you can just stream everything live no matter where you are in the world. Now the music industry has figured out to start trying to make money again. So people complain about like, well, you only get fractions of pennies per play, and that's nothing compared to how it used to be. It's like, bro, it's a lot better than 2002 when people were making no money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like in 2005, if you're trying to be in a band and you were just assuming that you were going to make zero money off of the plays, you put your stuff on MySpace, and then like you hoped you got a bunch of plays so you could get enough attention to get signed and go on a tour, but you got like no royalties because no one was buying music. No one was paying. Now you get like, dude, we get money every month deposited directly for royalties on Spotify, on Apple, crazy. And everywhere. And musicians are making money off of that. So anybody that you see that has 5-figure or 6-figure level of monthly listeners on Spotify in the music industry now, you can rest assured that now granted, who knows like who's songwriting, who knows how it's getting split up, but you can rest assured that that artist as a franchise is getting a good chunk of money deposited into their account every month.
Right. So. And my friend who does music right now, he's an indie folk artist. He's making money off of playing small shows, and he's making good money right now. And we talk about his social media following needs to bump up, because even in comedy, that's honestly, folks, listen, social media matters. So whenever that gets bumped up, it works. So they will book people based on their social media following. Now the problem is most of those people don't have the chops to carry a show. So you do have to have the talent and the time put in, but like social media following, it's huge. It's huge. It's such a big thing right now.
Well, and the cool thing, going back to bandwidth, the cool thing, because I used to be one of those people forever, like even when I was like super, super young, right? Like I used to always be like, dude, social media is stupid. It's BS. It's not real. Like everybody that's on there is fake. Everybody who's big on it is fake. I think maybe that used to be true at one point in time. You could argue that either way. But now I have a completely different perception. Because now that I'm putting out podcasts, now that I'm putting out content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, the cool thing now where we are is technology and bandwidth is there to the point where you can put stuff out in real time with your own equipment, and you can really make it your own. You can really, just like in comedy, you find your own voice, or like as a band or a rapper or whatever, you develop your own sound and your own voice on the mic. The same it goes with content creation. You have to fail and copy other ideas and do things that aren't that successful, that people don't think are that great, and that it doesn't go viral and flops. You got to do that, right? It's kind of like going to open mics, right?
Right.
But the cool thing is, dude, your only limitation with doing like all social media now and putting out content, especially as like a comedian or a performer, your only limitation is your imagination. Like, so you can put out stuff and you don't have to do, if you think something's corny that somebody else is doing, you don't like it, you don't have to do that. You can find your own it just takes some work and some trial and error, and you can find your own voice.
Right. And once you find that one thing, the thing is that you build a base. That's what I always tell everyone. Like, start making your content, start creating a base of videos or podcasts or whatever it is. Because John Mulaney said the first 10 of anything is terrible. And I truly believe that's true. So like the first 10 of your podcasts, they're going to suck. The first 10 times you go on stage, you're going to be terrible. Or you might get lucky and you catch the bug and do well, like you said, like in 2012 when you did it. But it's a matter of consistently going up and putting out and just working on stuff nonstop.
Yeah,
so,
100%.
And you build that base of videos, and eventually it's going to find the crowd. The algorithm is going to work with you. Like you said, you had luck with the Walking Dead, thing. And then from there, you probably had a base of stuff, I'm guessing. So that probably went from there. And then you're like, okay, this works. Let's do another cover.
Yeah.
Let's work on this. So it's genius. I guess we should get back to comedy. I love talking about this.
Bored. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, no, that was fun. All right. So when you were a kid, were you the funny kid?
Yes, but not like intentionally, or not trying to be like, I'm going to be the funny guy. I'm going to be the class clown. I was never that guy. I was more like the kid that got kicked out of class for like pushing it too far.
Oh shit.
Like irritating the teacher or trying to get attention. I was a child of divorce, dude. I had super ADD. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't interested in really what was going on most of the time. I got bored easily. So I would just like act out and try to act out for attention. And sometimes teachers would tolerate it. Sometimes I would push their limit and they'd be like, nah, dude, go to the office. Get out of here, So like I was that kid a lot, especially in elementary school.
What was the worst thing you ever did?
The worst thing I did? Yeah. I think I like grabbed this kid's nuts at the water fountain. I think, because I remember, dude, that was back in the day. I think that was like kindergarten or first grade. But I can't remember. Maybe I cut him and I was just being a total dick. No pun intended, at the water fountain, or maybe he cut me. I can't remember. I was a little kid, but either way, I did something. I think I was like, like grabbed his nuts or something crazy. And then so like the principal had to bring my parents in, have a conference, and I had an alcoholic dad that was just fire off at anybody with any confrontation. Like I saw him go off on an entire staff of Blockbuster Video. I saw him go off on an entire staff of a movie theater. I saw him go off on everybody, dude. So he immediately was like, went off on the principal, like, just deflecting and stuff, and they got into it hard. I remember that, and like my mom had to take me out of the office because they were in a shouting match.
Oh wow!
And I guess the principal was like, "Well, I see where it comes from," But yeah, that was probably maybe like the worst thing I ever did. And then going into like middle school and high school and stuff, I started doing a lot of drugs. Started like getting high super early, way earlier than I should have. Drinking, acid, mushrooms, weed at like 12, 13, and on up through high school. So anyway, what I would do, okay, so I always wanted to be a musician. I was like, this is what I want to do. From like 14 on, I thought that's what I wanted to do. So what I would do, I was never the guy who was like, I'm going to be a comedian, or I'm going to be like Seinfeld. I know I want to be a comic when I'm 14 or whatever. I wasn't like that. I never even considered myself to be like the funny guy, but what I would do, just completely incidentally, is I would get together with all my friends, like after school or on the weekends or whatever. My dad, not a good parenting tactic in retrospect, but I was the kid whose house where it was cool for everybody to go and get high at, right? Yeah. So you could get away with it there. So I was like, oh, we can go to this dude's house and get high. So I'd be hanging out with my friends, we'd be drinking, smoking, and I would be the guy I'd do impressions of everybody that we knew. Not famous people, but people that we knew. But they'd be like, do the PE teacher, do this guy that we have history with, do that chick, So and then I would just nail them, and they would laugh, And I would come up with little jokes in conversation, but I never ever thought like it would transfer to a stage, or that I would ever do it comedically, especially back when I was like a teenager and stuff.
Right. So you're following music at that time, but you said you were a fan of comedy through the whole thing.
Huge nerd.
So who was the first person you saw that really introduced you?
So early stand-up specials that I would watch, I watched Comedy Central. So my dad's girlfriend had cable. I didn't grow up. My mom never had cable, right? So my dad's girlfriend, when they split up and they got with their own people, my mom got with my stepdad, my dad got with his girlfriend. She had cable at her apartment. So I would go over there, dude, and I would watch the summers, like summer vacation, not have anything to do, all through middle school and like all through high school. And then obviously weeknights, I would watch Premium Blend. I would watch Comedy Central Presents. Yeah. I would watch any comedy special I could. It was back when Tommy Davidson hosted Premium Blend. Mm-hmm. I'd watch, I think they were reruns, and I just didn't know they were reruns. I think I'd watch reruns of that. And then I watched Comedy Central Presents. So Greg Fitzsimmons' Comedy Central Presents is one of the first ones that I remember. I used to think that was hilarious, and they'd run it all the time. Jim Gaffigan. And then I got into, like my mom would rent like all the DVDs for me and stuff, like Chris Rock, Bigger and Blacker, Never Scared, all of those, all the classic Chris Rock stuff. And then Eddie Murphy, I go, Delirious, Raw, Richard Pryor, Live on the Sunset Strip, Richard Pryor, Here and Now, all the Richard Pryors. George Carlin, all the classics, like all the Led Zeppelin and Beatles and Rolling Stones of comedy, and then all the new stuff too I'd see on Comedy Central with all the Premium Blends and the Comedy Central Presents, right. So I just thought all those were hilarious. I loved stand-up comedy, but I never fathomed that, because I assumed I did the normal thing that I think the average amateur does, where you just think, oh, this person's just really that funny, and they just got up there
and they made it up on the spot,
and they were just that funny. Yeah. These people are just that funny. It never really occurred to me. It's like, no, they were awful. Like, they were funny as a person, but on stage they were horrible for like years. And they like had to work on it and craft it.
It's so weird because I myself I was in a punk rock band for years, and I played drums also.
Okay.
And so it's so weird to think that we knew that we needed the practice for that.
Right.
But we never realized that like comedians needed the practice. You know what I mean?
You don't think that.
You never think about it. And it's such a different way to practice because you only get to do it 3 to 5 minutes at a time. And then you, like, unlike music where you don't hate yourself after it.
Yeah.
With comedy, after you do an open mic and no one laughs, you're just like, God damn it, I suck.
Yeah.
Or like you go to a show and you bomb and you're just like, for a week, you're just like, I'm the worst worst human being that ever existed. And that's why it's so unique. And the other thing is, you said you were the front man for a band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're in a group.
Right.
You share that. I always say, like, improv comedy, you share the responsibility.
Right. You bomb together.
Yes.
Just like with a band, you have a bad set, it's a bad show, you suck, you're sucking together.
Yeah, exactly.
Stand up, it's all you.
It's all you. And it's just, oh man, it can be a real ego drain.
It's all the glory or all the misery.
Yeah. And so it's so funny to think that we didn't realize you needed the practice, because we practiced at these other things and we put in the time. It's the exact same thing. So I always think that's really funny. You talked kind of about going up for the first open mic. Were you nervous?
Yes, I was very nervous. That first ever open mic that I did, or the one here in
Both.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, the first ever one I did. Yeah, I basically was completely, absolutely trying to be a replica of Daniel Tosh. I wrote a bunch of hacky whatever. I can't even remember what they were, and I did it at a hotel bar in L.A. just outside of Hollywood. And I didn't understand this either, because I was brand new. I didn't understand that the 4 people that I was going up in front of were also comics. This was just a horrible open mic on like a Tuesday night or something. Right. So I didn't understand that everybody there was also a comic. Like the guy hosting, the 2 guys sitting there. So I thought that what I said was horrible. There's no doubt about that. But I thought that I was just bombing in front of these people that were there to watch. I didn't understand. No, well, what you do suck, but also that there is truth in that, but you're also, even if you were good, these dudes aren't really going to care. They're other comedians.
No, they're too worried about what they're going to say and what's going on, and they're not even paying attention
or
to
they're too busy judging you, being
absolutely.
This idiot,
Yeah, what the fuck are they doing? I'm so much better than them.
I should be up there. Just like all of
taking his minutes right now.
Yeah. So I was nervous, and I thought, oh my God, I'm so horrible. It's like, well, yeah, first of all, yes, you are, but also you're going up, this is a horrible open mic, too. Yeah. I didn't understand any of that, right? So then when I did the open mic at Arlington Improv, there were a couple regular audience members, but I did have a concept of okay, because I had that small bit of experience. So I knew, okay, I'm going to go up, it's going to be mostly comics. Okay, I understand that now, and there's going to be a couple tables up front. But yeah, I did I did nothing. I can't even remember what I did 2 years ago. I don't do any of that stuff now.
Wow.
It was all awful, I'm sure. I sang. It was awful, dude.
Dude, I tried that once, and somebody made fun of me, and I was just like, I'm never
oh my God,
again.
dude. I sang. It was so cringy, dude.
Yeah.
It was so cringy. Oh my God.
So you were nervous, though.
I was nervous. So I was very nervous.
But you're only 2 years removed from that. Do you feel that nervousness still?
No, because fortunately, man, it's just been kind of going up and up and up, man. I'm getting a lot of stage time. I've gotten a lot of stage time. I got past this time last year, I went and showcased at the Looney Bin in OKC.
Insane.
It's closed right now, but it might, word on the street, no confirmation yet, new owners might be reopening it.
Awesome.
Okay, so that would be cool, because that's the closest Looney Bin to DFW. So it was really convenient, because it's just a 3-hour trip. I was driving, compared to Tulsa or Little Rock, right? I know, and I'm a big podcast nerd, namely comedy podcast nerd. I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts. That's pretty much all I listen to. So I knew that the age you are in comedy is not how many days or months or years you've been doing it. It's how many hours you've logged of stage time, right? So I knew that the best way to get access to stage time, right, even though it's been a small amount of time, is I need to get as good as I can at developing a nice set of clean comedy that I can open with, that I can host with, right? Because the faster I can do that and develop decent jokes that are good enough for me to be able to open, the faster that certain clubs are going to give me those opportunities. And the more of those opportunities I get, that means the more stage time I'm going to get, right? So it's not necessarily that I think I'm good enough to have this. It's that I think I'm decent enough to get these opportunities so that I can continue to get really good.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, so now I've done the Looney Bin complete circle twice through now. This time I just did Tulsa. I noticed year over year. So the first year that I did it, I got very little feedback or any kind, maybe 1 or 2 people between all the different Looney Bin weekends that I did had said anything about how good or decent my set was. This time, I was in Tulsa. A lot of people coming. So year over year, I noticed the improvement is my point. I noticed that I'm that much better than I was last year, which is should be everybody's goal, right?
Yeah.
To just continuously grow, continuously get funnier and better. So I noticed my feedback year over year was up 1,000%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was a cool little reassurance for me.
Yeah. So how did you get the hosting gig? Was it the Looney Bin the first time you hosted?
First ever club that I worked at was the Looney Bin. Yeah, it was OKC. I went up there. I did the open mic because I wanted to get booked in places no matter what, so I could get more stage time. Because
Right.
I was getting bar shows, I was getting little spots here and there. But then I was like, dude, I really need that because that's going to be like a really good guarantee that I'm going to start to be able to do 10, 15 minutes on the regular. So I went up there and I did the open mic, 4-minute set. Asked the manager to watch me. And I did well. And then she was like, that was a good set. Do you have tape? Can you do 15 minutes clean? And fortunately, I just had my Rose City. I just taped a 15-minute set there, right? Wasn't a complete 15-minute set, but it was good enough, right? So I sent it to her. A month later, got booked. She was like, what are your avails, right? So there was the first club to give me the opportunity. Wow. So I did OKC, did really well, had a good weekend there. So she was like, you did well. I'm going to give you the numbers of all the managers of the other 3 clubs.
Oh,
Tell them I told you to, But obviously I came up and I said, hey, I'd love to work the other clubs if you liked what I did. And she was like, yes, I did. Here are their numbers, right?
Nice.
So she's like, tell them I told you to call them and to get booked there and that you just worked here. So then, boom, I started doing Wichita. I started doing Tulsa. I started doing Little Rock.
Oh, that's so cool.
So then obviously people here in DFW saw that. So then I started getting club opportunities here. Started getting more opportunities at the Improvs. Started getting more opportunities at the Hyenas. And then also I had gone to Backdoor religiously, like every week.
What a great place too, especially to practice your clean comedy because that's what they require.
Linda gave me a lot of opportunities in that open mic. I went every Thursday for my entire first year. I asked if I could host a weekend, and she said yes. She gave me a little trial. I did well. So then I started doing the weekend at Backdoor, shortly thereafter. So that helped me also because that continued to help me hone and stuff. And then a lot of the DFW comics here kind of saw like that progress that I was making, and they saw the progress I was making on stage 2, and they saw the things I started to get. So then I think I got kind of won some people's respect, like Tony Compion was telling me like, dude, I didn't fucking, I was like, well, the fuck is this guy fucking getting here? But I can't tell you, man, it's funny, man, He's like, dude, you got my respect, man. Not before, but now, Which is great. No, I love Tony. But that's what he said. At first, he was like, I was like, who the fuck, But he's like, so I've been working, dude. I've been working it, and just hustling, trying to get as much stage time
which
possible.
is crazy because you're kind of outside of DFW a little bit. You're way down there on the south side of Fort Worth.
We do things a little differently out here, boy.
So I've always seen you at the open mic up here. And so I know you've been traveling around and doing that. So that's crazy.
I think that's another thing that a lot of established working DFW comedians saw too. Like they when some of them knew where I live because they did my podcast, and some of them learned where I live when they asked me, and they were like, dude, like this dude's coming out to Dallas like 3-4 times a week, driving 40 plus minutes to do open mics and go up at like 12 o'clock, at midnight. Like, this guy's got some drive. I think that people, at the very minimum, whether they thought I was funny or not, they do appreciate that.
And you travel a lot, don't you, for your job?
I drive all around. Yeah, I drive all around for my day job. I work for an auto auction, so like I drive. Driving is already a part of it. Just being from LA, dude, making a 30-40 minute trip somewhere is not out of the ordinary for me. You know, I understand that's a little different for people in DFW, but for me, it's kind of like, dude, that's not a big deal. I'm already used to that.
Yeah, with DFW, it takes about an hour and 15 to an hour and a half to get from one side of the city to the other. So that's conservative without heavy traffic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you get used to it, and it can be a decent drive, and you can take the tollways if you want. That makes it a little shorter, but yeah, I mean, there's so many opportunities though. Like for you to say that you've only been in the game 2 years, doing 12 open mics a week, which is a lot.
Unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, good problem to have, or unfortunately for writing's sake, I don't get to as many of them as I used to because I'm booked quite a bit now.
Yeah,
so,
and you got a family too.
There's the family thing, but fuck them.
No, yeah. Not important.
No, but I'm saying, but in all seriousness, dude, fortunately, thank God, like most weekends, I have at least one, if not a couple shows.
Yeah. So
I get to, my whole thing, my big long game, like Amazon 20-year plan of everything, it's all about stage time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not necessarily like the little trophies of like what you get at this point in time and being in competition with people. It's not about that for me. It's about how do I get the maximum stage time? Like there have been weeks this past in 2023 so far, thank God, due to other Dallas Fort Worth comics that have given me some opportunities and really vouched for me and helped me out. That's the only reason. I've gotten weeks where I've had 2.5 hours of stage time.
Oh, wow.
Between all the clubs and all the spots, if you add up the 15-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute, 10-minute. This last weekend, I did 4 spots on Friday alone. I did 2 shows at TK's, and then I did a guest spot at Hyenas on Dope City. Shout out to Matt and Tim from Dope City. And then I did a 15-minute spot at DCC.
Nice.
So that's 4 spots in one night alone, and that was an hour and a half of cumulative stage time altogether for that whole weekend, because I did TK's Thursday through Sunday, plus Friday was those 2 extra shows.
Yeah.
So that's, if you look at that in terms of your log and how old you are in terms of stage time, that's an example of how great one of my weeks can be.
Do you tally in total, or do you just look at it like a week?
I don't have like a log.
You're not doing like 10,000 hours of
No. And I'm not opposed to that. I'm not knocking that. If somebody does that, that's great. But no, for me, I'm just kind of keeping a mental picture. And I'm kind of like looking at like, okay, let me look at tape then versus now. I'm looking at feedback year over year. I got an opportunity to go and do the Grove a few times. Once again, got in there strictly because of vouch from some very respected Dallas-Fort Worth comedians that said that I could use their name. So it's because of them solely that I got an initial opportunity. But here's the thing. I get these initial opportunities because of those vouches. But then I go there and I deliver on them and I do well, right? So that's the payoff, right? That's like making their name. I feel like I'm obligated to make them look good too.
Right.
Because like they're nice enough to put their neck out there and give me that nice vouch and give me the reason why I'm there. So I better bring it, right?
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want to do is have them help me out and make them look bad. Right?
Yeah.
So because of that, I got to get into the Grove, and I had a good weekend there. My first weekend, the guy was like, "Hey, dude, you're going to be working here a lot. I'm going to be calling you, So then that's how I got the Pauly Shore opportunity, et cetera. And like Bill up there has helped me work a lot. So, and obviously I can parlay those, right? Like, so you do well at one club and you do a good job, you have a good attitude, you build a good reputation. You can say, hey, dude, let me work at your club. You know, this dude over here, they're going to know. Every club knows each other. They all compete, right? So be like, dude, I just worked for him. Call him, ask him how I did.
Because in every club, they've worked for the other clubs. Little inside for you, just so you know.
Yep.
You leave one place, you go somewhere else. Because once you're in comedy, you're in.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
So it's the references, right? So it's like just you. Like, it's like, dude, I just worked at XYZ. Don't let me tell you how great I am or whatever, blow smoke at you. Why don't you call or text him and let him tell you?
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your writing process. What is that like? Do you drive a lot? So is it just thinking while driving, or do you write longhand? Do you sit down and write every day?
It's a combination of both. Most of the time, what it comes down to, it's a little bit of like what you said. It's a little bit of like driving, and I'll just think of random thoughts, or watching TV, and I'll think of a thought, or watching, seeing something on the internet. Or sometimes I will sit down and do the application. I try as much as possible. I fail most days, but some days I try to do the whole Damon Wayans thing, where I heard on a podcast once where his advice was, dude, everybody has a smartphone now. He's like, set a timer on your phone and write for 10 minutes. He's like, everybody's got 10 minutes. Okay, I don't care who you are. At some point in the day or night, sit down and write for 10 minutes, even if you get no ideas. Just write, stream of consciousness on your phone or on a notebook, and write till put the phone upside down so you don't look at it, and just wait till that timer goes off, and then you can say that you wrote every day for 10 minutes. I do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like most comics, you procrastinate though.
I procrastinate. Well, and also it's a balance, right? You got to find your balance, because I'm putting out content a lot. I'm editing my podcast. I'm editing videos.
I was going to ask, do you get content from your podcast?
Yeah.
You ever go listen back and go, oh my God, that was fucking hilarious. I'm going to pull
couple times. Yeah. I need to do it more, because I'm sure there's some other stuff in there.
There's content in there, dude. I'm telling you, Bill Burr pulls like 90% of his act from his podcast.
Yes.
But he also talks to himself, so he's working through material constantly. Which is nice about you is you just started recently doing the stream of consciousness talking, but you have amazing guests with the local comedians on too.
It's pretty cool.
So, and the thing that I like about you, and you'll notice about me, I pull back whenever the guest is there. I let them do the most of the talking. You do the same thing.
Yeah, you're very good, dude. You were great on mine. I was like, because I could tell. I knew that you had a couple podcasts, but I never really like sat down and like riffed with you before, especially on a podcast. So that's one thing I noticed. Like you and Raphael were both good. Like you guys were both really good. Brian was awful. No, I'm just kidding.
Take that, Brian.
I love Brian.
No, he's so naturally charismatic. You're drawn to him. So like you have to play off everyone has different levels of like experience and charisma and what they do and what they bring to the table. And doing the horror podcast, which you've done with us, fun. A couple times, I think, like 5-10 times or so.
Yeah, a couple times.
Right towards the end of it, you could tell like you have to kind of jump in when you can, but you have to pull back when you can. It's hard, man, especially whenever you want to like you said, ADD it. You want to jump in with what you got to say, but you got to pull back.
Yeah.
So that's a skill in itself. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
But so the writing process, you kind of do the longhand and then you go back and edit it. Is that what you do?
What it mostly comes down to is me writing things that I think are funny ideas in my phone. I have a whole tab where I just write like joke ideas, and then I'll just write them down, and then I'll look through it. Like whenever I'm about to do an open mic, or whether I have a show where I can try to throw something in the middle to see if it's good or not, like I'll look through that and I'll make bullet points, like, and I'll just put a phrase so I know I remember in my head. Or if it's an open mic and I can have my phone there on the stool or whatever, then I can look at it and reference it. And then I'll just do that. So most of the time it comes down, I do write in a notebook. Like I have a notebook. I don't write in it all the time. Mostly it comes from the phone, and just like thinking of ideas. And then you know how it is, dude, because I learned quickly, just like a lot of comics talk about, like a lot of veteran comics talk about, when I was brand new, I used to write every single word out and even write like tags or reactions. And he's like, everybody that's successful is like, dude, don't do that. Like, everybody's like, dude, now when I come up with an idea, I'll put like a word, and then I go up stage and record myself. Because really what you want to do is just say the thing that you think is going to be funny, and say it however you're going to say it on stage. Because that's how you're going to figure out how to really communicate it. And you're also going to figure out the things that you don't think are going to necessarily be as funny about the bit you're trying to do. Those might be the funniest things to the audience. They might laugh at things you didn't even realize were funny, and the thing you thought was going to be really funny about it isn't even the funny part. That bombs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the only way you're going to learn that stuff is if you go on stage and you try it.
That's genius. I've never heard that before.
Dude, the only reason I even know that is because I've listened to people like Patrice O'Neal, Louis C.K., you know, like masters of comedy or whatever, you know, veteran comics that were iconic, talk about that. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, dude, I used to write for Joe Rogan. I used to write every single word down. I even used to write like possible things I would say when the crowd reacts to what I'm saying. He's like, dude, don't do that. He's like, just go up there and say it, because you're probably going to fail at it the first time. It's not going to come out that great. And like, you need to record and listen to what people are reacting to.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem I have, as I'm robotic. And that's something I have to work on. I've never even thought about that. So that you just blew my mind with all that information. Like, I'm like, I got to totally do that. How do you deal with hecklers? Like, do you enjoy them?
I don't mind it. Yeah. I don't mind it. I've gotten better and more comfortable. Like, that's the cool thing with the stage time that kind of has, like, it's shown to me over time in the small time that I've been doing comedy is, like, anytime somebody shouts something out or whatever, like, I get to, like, you know, you just get very comfortable with pivoting off of it, right? Like, the first time it happens, you're like, oh, you know, okay, but then now you can just flow into it. You get better at it. Yeah. You get better at dealing with that stuff. Just like with being on stage itself, you just get more comfortable with it, and you can kind of roll with the punches. So
do you stick to your script mainly, or do you do improv when you go on stage? How do you play the game?
I'll improv off of like certain ways that people react to the jokes, and then like I've gotten like when I hit walls, like when it's a certain crowd or whatever, that like it's a joke that's just kind of like a B or a C joke that's not quite as good as the A's, right? Like the joke that's not as good as maybe others that I know, like, unless like if the crowd might not pick up on, I have like good recovery lines that I've only developed from being on stage over and over. Like my big thing that confuses comics that follow me sometimes if they're listening to me is like whenever something bombs or whenever I hit a wall, to overcome the silence and try to win them back real quick, I'll ask the crowd how the edibles are kicking in. So like then people most of the time people laugh at that. At least a portion of the crowd will laugh because I'm like, how are those edibles kicking in, guys? Oh, dude, I don't know if you're funny or not, but there's two of you right now. People they kind of jump back in, so then I can win them back and then go back into something else to try to get them again, you know?
Something I noticed watching your clip today, you get a little bit aggressive with the crowd too. You kind of speak with the voice of the crowd, and like you did the joke about it's a really good like triple joke, and you end with the concentration camp. And bombs in that clip, it didn't bomb, but it didn't do as well as the first two. You're just like, oh, that's the fucking line, motherfuckers. Like, so I was like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
like,
and then they react.
Yeah.
So then you kind of get them back, right? Yeah. So like they kind of were like, ooh, and then you're like, come on, guys, and then they're like, you're right.
We forgot we're in a comedy club. We were living by the social norms of everywhere else.
Yeah, I hate that tape that you watched, by the way.
Oh, really?
Because I have so much. I do something completely new now that I would totally. What I would include, and this is always going to change and evolve over time, right? But like, I have things now in my normal set. Like, if you were like, dude, go up on stage at the Improv and do 10 minutes, like do your A stuff. I have like a completely different half of that whole thing compared to what you watch that I would do now. So
no, I understand that over time you do begin to hate your material, and you kind of go like, I suck and this sucks. But then sometimes sometimes you'll love it again, so you go back and forth. I like what you just said about the A jokes, the B jokes, the C jokes. I've never even thought about that. I guess I knew that there were stronger ones and weaker ones.
Yeah.
But I never thought about categorizing them that way.
I got that from Stephen Briggs. I just opened for him at Tulsa, and he was like, the way that you craft your set and you build it over time to the point where you get like 30 minutes and stuff. Because a lot of these guys, a lot of these headliners are like, dude, you need to, what your next goal should be, like, you know, because they're like, you're a solid host. Their words, not mine. They're like, you're a solid host, and you got good material. Like, you need to start working on building so you can start featuring. Like, and then what that's going to take is they're like, how you're going to get there is you're going to take all your A jokes, and you know they're A jokes, right? But what you're going to do is you're going to start taking your B and your C jokes. These are his words, right? Stephen Briggs. And he's like, you're going to work on and replace the C's with better jokes. So then now you're going to bump up and you're going to have that many more B jokes. And then you're going to replace those B's and bump them up, replace them with A jokes or change them to become A jokes. Now all of a sudden you got 25 minutes of A and B and you got no C anymore. And then all of a sudden, a few months later, now you got all A. Now you got 20 minutes of A jokes, dude.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So like he was saying that's the ABC.
That's awesome. That makes sense, and that actually helps a lot. Like, that's some inside dope right there. It really is.
He's a headliner,
Yeah.
you know, so he was headlining.
That's crazy.
There's this other dude, Jeff Shaw, that I opened for at the Grove. Not to go down a rabbit hole on this,
Go
but
for it.
another piece of advice that he gave me that I think you'll like, that I liked. He's a 30-year plus comic, you know. He was like, a lot of comics make the mistake, a lot of young comics, he's like, they make the mistake of thinking, oh, well, to get like a longer set, to get like, you know, I'm at 15, how do I get to 20 and 30? He's like, a lot of people make the mistake of going, I just need to write more material and come up with more jokes, right? And more material and more premises. He's like, no, the easiest way and what you should be doing is take the things in your 10, 15-minute set that already work and expand on those. Mm-hmm. Write more tags, write more perspectives, write more jokes that are along that subject line that you know is already working, that's proven, that's funny, and then expand on those. So you take the things that you spend 3 minutes on, you turn each of those into 6 or 7 minute chunks. Now all of a sudden you got 25 minutes out of the topics that were 10. Yeah. So that was what he said too.
Yeah, John Bonet, may he rest in peace, he was amazing at talking about the fact that he was fat. And that's all he would talk about. And he would do entire hours, 2 hours of like just fat jokes back to back to back to back to back. And it worked like the whole time. And he toured forever until he passed away. You know what I mean? So I think there's something there to that. And I think that's genius. Yeah, you really do have to work on what works.
That was great advice that he said. He's like, just put more of your perspective in there, because he's like, a lot of people think that a lot of comics will have a joke be funny consistently, and then he's like, the mistake they make is think, oh yeah, well that was just one idea that I came up with was funny. He's like, no, people think it's funny because they really believe you and they enjoy your perspective on that. So he's like, give them more of it. Put more of your perspective on that same subject matter. Make it a 5-minute long joke instead of a 1-minute long joke.
And you talked about that a little bit earlier. You said about, talking about myself. And that's something that you do a lot, where you talk about your experiences.
Because I listen to veterans, they're like, dude, that's what I realized like I have to do.
Yeah. And that's what people are interested in, because people are interested in who you are when you get on that stage and what your story is. And so how did you find that voice within the last 2 years?
I just started because I went on stage initially and I went like, let's talk about this rap song and let's talk about all this dumb like things that a lot of people do, whatever, like in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I listened to a lot of people both in the scene here locally, working comics, as well as like veterans and superstars on podcasts, and like all of them are talking about like the thing that people are most interested in is yourself, and people aren't going to believe you or want to listen to you or even think that anything you say is funny until they really are tuned in and they believe what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because once the first thing you hook people in with is that they believe what you're saying first. You say something that relates and resonates with them, right? Then you say the funny. And that's when you really hit. That's when the joke hits, because people are like, oh, I get what this guy's saying. I believe this guy. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
You know, and then the laugh comes. Right?
So was it hard finding yourself on stage, or do you think you did that pretty quick?
I mean, I think obviously like I'm still in the process of finding my voice. I think it takes years to do that, whatever. I think that's why Ralph Barbosa, local giant superstar now, hometown hero, right? Very cool guy. Don't know him super well, but had a couple little cool exchanges with him. Was always very nice. And now he's huge. I think that's what a lot of people say his success was. Obviously, he's funny. Obviously, he's talented. But he found – you talk to Ralph off stage, he's not that different than the guy that's on stage.
Yeah.
He's just saying jokes versus he's just chilling there off stage.
Yeah.
He found how to be himself quickly. You know what I mean? So I think I just started talking about like my life. Like, dude, what can I say? I got these 2 little kids. You know what I mean? That's part of my reality. That's part of my life, you know? And then other stuff is just kind of my perspective on stuff.
Now, do you want to get to the point, because you said you're working kind of clean right now. Do you want to work dirtier? Because the podcast itself is not clean.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And I think that personality that you put out in the podcast is probably who you want to be as a comedian eventually.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right.
You do want to work dirtier.
Yeah, I'd say so. Because shows where I've gotten to be dirty, I'm like definitely feel like I'm way more of myself and not just up there being a guy telling these jokes and being just more me, which is every successful comedian. It's how long does it take to get to just being you?
Yeah.
Whether it takes a year or 20, that's when you really start to be really funny.
Fucking clip that right there, because that is the truth.
Right?
That's
what I hear from everybody that's been doing it, right?
Yeah.
They're like, dude, it's just how long does it take to be you, right?
Yeah.
For example, okay, so do all my clean stuff on Friday night, like at TK's because I'm opening, right? I want you to be clean. Then I jump over to Hyenas. I do the same thing just because they wanted me to open the show up, right? So it was a guest spot, but it was an opening guest spot. Then I go over to DCC. Now it's 15 minutes of whatever I want to do, right? And I'm closing out this. I'm the last comic to go up because I was late, right? So I go up there and now I get to do all my dirty stuff, right? So then I was just completely flowing and being myself and messing with the crowd and doing all that. Is way more fun. To me, that's way more fun. I can go up there. I could be clean. I definitely wanted to prove myself and be like, no, dude, I can write like 15, 20 minutes of like clean material, you know what I mean, that works, that I can use if you're like, hey, dude, I need you to be squeaky clean. I can do that. Is it really 100% me? At least at this stage, for me and my perspective, I don't think so. It's a lot more funny and loose for me. Like I did a spot at Bricktown that was a showcase show, right? So I went up and got to do 15 minutes, no restrictions, right? No clean, no crowd work, whatever. And like immediately I got on stage and there was this dude just staring at the floor. Like he was just looking. I don't know if he was high or what, but he was just like, you know how Bricktown's set up?
No.
So the stage is not like this where it's elevated. It's like it's slightly elevated, but there's a square of people around you on three sides, and like those people are right up against. Like you could put your foot on the stage easily, right? Yeah. So he was just sitting there, just like this. So I get up there before I even start any material. I'm like, what the hell's going on, dude? You bored, dude? And everybody just starts cracking up, dude. I'm like, this guy's so depressed. I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough, dude. And so then I started messing around, and then I was myself, and I got to be like dirty and just say whatever. That doesn't mean that like all my jokes were dirty, but like it was just a lot more comfortable.
But that kind of goes back to what you did when you were a kid, when you were making fun of like all the local legends and like the people that everyone knew.
Yeah.
You were fucking with people and kind of playing off that. You have these archetypes now where you see this guy where he's just, you know, like you said, is he depressed? Is he bored? Is he high? What is he? And you have this ability to hone in on that. And I'm sure that's learned skill from being able, with all the other kids all those times when you were younger and making fun of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could see you like taking that and expanding it and having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
So that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to be fun because I was like, we're talking to Crux, like we're just going to chill and have a good time.
Well, isn't it always fun, man? Because you can relate to this 100%. Not every guest that you have on a podcast or a show is also going to be a podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's always fun to have somebody like Mikey B is awesome because he podcasts, Shiva is an awful person, but he's cool to do it because he podcasts with me all the time. He's good. He's really good because he came to my house every week. So he's got a lot of podcast chops. He's got chops now on a podcast that he didn't have before.
Yeah.
Because he's doing so many of them. So like when you do one, especially with somebody that produces one themselves, like there's a flow there and you're more comfortable. Fine. Right?
Yeah. So I've had Mikey B on. I knew it was going to be fun. It was. He talked about dirty shit. It was a blast.
Dude, Mikey B, I'll tell you, like he's a friend of mine, and we're close. What I love about him is obviously he's a funny comic on stage, obviously, but like his thing is he's one of the more funny people locally that like I just love to have a conversation with and just watch him mess with people. He's just a funny dude,
and he does that naturally.
He's just a naturally.
He's like,
funny
how am
guy.
I going to tear you down while building you up?
He's so good.
And then he'll say stuff like, one day I was like, man, I'm fat. He goes, yeah, you're fat as shit. I was like, oh. That hurt.
But he can kind of get away with it.
He's like, I'm fat as shit though too, so it's fine. I was like, all right, Mikey.
Yeah, he can kind of get away.
Yeah,
I just love how open he is, and I love it with face value, and he's just so naturally funny, dude. Yeah. I'd say the most naturally funny person in Dallas-Fort Worth for what it is on record, going down in history, probably is Tom Murphy.
Yeah.
The most I'm talking about just in existence.
Yeah, I almost felt like when he disappeared, he did it on purpose, just because it was like an Andy Kaufman style, like he was like, I'm not going to be around anymore. I was just like, he's fine.
I mean, dude, that guy,
Yeah.
So funny, just naturally.
Well, let's talk about the podcast.
Okay.
How did that come about? Because you're at 100 episodes almost?
I'm at 92.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm about to hit 100, and I'm going to start doing at least 2 or 3 a week. I think solos and then guests.
Yeah. Are you going to count those as numbers, the solos?
I'm going to count them as numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's really gonna. It's not about the number as much anymore. Because I'm realizing like what I really want to do is start just covering trending topics like as often throughout the week as I can.
And that's good practice too for writing.
Yes.
So that's
100%,
awesome.
100%. I knew that I had to have a podcast just because all the veteran comics that are super successful said. So leading up to me starting 2 years ago, I was like, everybody in the industry that's successful and does comedy professionally, whether you're Joe Rogan or whether you're just a working comic that does the road, everybody knows that you got to have something else. You got to be doing something else. You got to be present on social media. You got to do skits. You got to have a podcast. You got to, if you're a hot chick, you got to be like showing some skin. You got to do something, right? You got to do something else because there's so many people doing comedy and the world is so different. And like JFL is changing. Comedy Central is almost non-existent. Like specials are kind of going out of style, dude.
Yeah.
Unless you're already a superstar comic that everybody wants to see your next take on things, like a Chris Rock or a Joe Rogan or a Dave Chappelle. Obviously, those guys can put out specials forever and people will watch them. But if you're an upcoming comic, dude,
It's all about
specials,
the clips.
Yeah, specials are kind of out of date, man.
Yeah.
People don't have the attention span. You know what I mean?
It's about YouTube Shorts, TikToks, what you can throw on Instagram Reels. It's about your 60-second clip. And it's weird that comedy is so... I noticed this from being an editor working for this company. It works within 60 seconds. Now, a joke can be longer than that, but you can get a really tight 60 seconds in there. And if people start thinking within that 60 seconds, I think they're going to really kill it. But like the clip is what it's all about. And that's you're seeing people like Matt Rife blow up over that, do the clips. Barbosa, like we talked about already, his YouTube channel has
a lot of people don't realize Matt Rife's been in the game for 10 years.
Oh yeah, he
started when he was 15, dude.
Yeah, it's such
like
a
people
long
think
process.
like, dude, this guy sucks. That's one thing. Like, this is the last thing I actually want to say. This is good. This is good. Try to include this if you can, because this is probably and this isn't just so I can toot my own horn or anything like that. This is just because it was cool. It was like a direct proof of like all of the hard work so far. But anyway. Matt Rife, I was told by an LA comedian, Comedy Store pay regular that I actually met at TK's last weekend, told me that Matt Rife has been working in LA since he was 15 years old. So even though he's really young, he's 26, whatever, he's been in the game for a decade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Grinding and not being good and just being this little dorky kid. Now, he might be getting hooked up with some HGH and got some caps on his teeth and looking hot, right? And he's getting some attention from the ladies, and he's also getting some attention on clips, and he's got some management behind him. But dude, it's not like he just picked the mic up last year and said, I'm going to do comedy. And I think that's what a lot of people that are hating on him, that's the perception.
I don't understand the hate. He's hilarious.
Yeah,
and
that's the perception, though, is that he just got up there and got 10 minutes, and then he looks hot, so people book him. It's like, no, dude, he's been working on this for a long time. Dude.
And I've loved what you said. It's about time, stage time. How much can you clock? How much can you get in per week? Doing 12 open mics, it's a lot of work. People, listen, that's a lot of driving. That's a lot of sitting there.
It's a lot of bombing.
It's a lot of bombing. It's a lot of sitting there and waiting for your turn, especially when you're new to the game.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But it's what is required.
I'd sit here, dude. I'd come here on Sundays, and I completely understood, dude, because I was old and mature enough to understand that, like, I'm on the bottom of the totem pole, dude. So I was completely accepting. I'd come here, I'd get put at the bottom of the list, or I wouldn't even get a chance to get up. I wasn't mad because it's like, dude, I understand. I understand. I'm nobody. I'm brand new here. You guys want to see if I even last.
Or like here, I can get into the list right away. Obviously, because I work here.
Yeah.
Hyenas, I got to sit there for 5 hours.
Yep.
That's just the way it is.
And now I get up right away, but that's because I went there every damn week and got up at 1 o'clock in the morning, you know what I mean, and bombed. But anyway, here's the last thing I want to say because I know we got a time factor. So this was really cool for me, dude. This was really cool. So like I've gotten some good opportunities in the small little time I've been doing comedy, right? But the best thing that happened, I can say, that was like really proof of like concept and proof of like, okay, my hard work is paying off, right? It's just like when you go to the gym a bunch of times in a row and someone says, hey, dude, you're looking kind of jacked. And you're like, yeah. So you do like hours of work for that one little comment. But that one little comment, it like means the world. So this was the same thing. This dude, Brady Matthews, that I just met last week, hadn't heard of him before, but dude, his name's on the wall at the Comedy Store. He's a Comedy Store paid regular. He's going to do Ryan Sickler's Honeydew podcast in a month or so. Cool dude. He's a legit comic, okay? He's a legit comic, been in the game for years. His name's on the wall at the Comedy Store. He did a guest spot at TK's because he used to live in LA and TK knows him. He came in, I was hosting Saturday shows. He came up to me at the bar after the sets, And he was like, dude, you were funny, man. You were funny, and you're a good host too. He's like, you're a good host. He's like, how long you been doing it? And I was like, dude, honestly, like this month is 2 years, right? And he was like, no shit. He's like, dude, you were excellent. He's like, dude, if you just said 10, I'd have been like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
10. All right, well, that's a little for 10. He's like, but 2? He's like, dude, you were excellent, man. Like, you are solid. You were solid, man. He's like, and then he offered me the spot that he's got going on in Austin a couple months later and stuff that who knows if that'll happen or not. I'm not mad at him if it doesn't. I don't care. The gesture was nice enough. But my point in bringing it up is not to go, yeah, dude, and that's why I'm cool. My point is that was like the direct evidence of getting paid off. Because it's okay for one of your buddies to say, hey, that was a good set, or hey, man, you're getting funny, or like for your family or somebody to give you a compliment. It's like you don't believe it because you're like, they're just being nice. But this dude did not know me, did not owe me anything, did not have to be nice. He's a legit proven comic, comedy store comic, right? And he was super funny.
Yeah.
And he said, dude, you're excellent. That was fucking cool.
Yeah.
That was a great compliment. That was like proof of concept. Like, okay, dude, I'm on the right track. I just need to keep doing what I'm doing and keep heading in the direction I'm in.
Yeah. And I think that that's the key thing. So many things you've said during this podcast had been such good advice. And usually I ask somebody, what's your advice for up and coming comedians? You've already given like some of the best advice I've heard out of all the comedians I've talked to.
I'm just regurgitating all the advice.
Dude, but you're using it though too. That's what matters.
Trying.
And 2 years in, like you said, you're working at the Looney Bin, you work at the Improv, you work at Hyenas, you work at all these different places on the weekends. That's huge to be working consistently. You know what I mean? A lot of people aren't working at 2 years in. So the proof is in the pudding, as they say. But yeah, the podcast, if you're not listening to it, everyone, you need to start listening to it. Crux, yeah! I love doing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a good podcast, man. It's fun.
Oh, it's fun, dude. It's a blast. And like the fact that you let me and Raph come on at that
Come on anytime.
Dude, I love it. Like it was one of the funnest experiences because once again, you're hosting. It's hard to host because you got to hold back. When I can be a guest, I'm just like, all right, I can be wild now and just be crazy.
Yeah.
That's how I started in podcasting, was as a guest always. You know what I mean? So I could just say the wildest shit. I didn't realize that hosting, you actually have to direct it and kind of figure out where you're going. Yeah, dude, thank you very much for coming on.
Dude, thanks for having me, man.
What are the socials?
Oh, yeah, at Crux Crawford everywhere. So mainly TikTok and Instagram. I don't really do a lot on Twitter. So that's at CRUX Crawford because there's no other name like it. You can find that on YouTube, too.
Awesome. Crux.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. For everyone out there watching, we appreciate it. Go support local comedy in any way, shape, or form that you can. And with that said, we will see you on the next one.
Next time.